Welcome everyone to my buyer's guide for the best beginner sport bike for 2025. My last buyer's guide was for 2023, and since then there's been a few more bikes brought onto the scene. My goal is to provide this comprehensive resource so as many new riders or potential new riders can feel more confident in making their decision while searching for their first bike. We will only be comparing small displacement sport bikes in this video. Anyway, let's introduce our 5 contestants. The first bike will be the all-new Kawasaki Ninja 500. Largely similar to the previous Ninja 400, the Ninja 500 returns as the reigning champion of the beginner bike class, but this time with an extra 52 cc's. Our next bike is the KTM RC390, a fierce competitor on the track. This KTM brings super sport features to the sport bike class. And our next bike is a new bike to this segment, looking to make its debut, the Aprilia RS457. An exotic manufacturer has entered the arena, and I'm excited to see how this Italian beginner bike competes with the other bikes in this segment. Bringing out our next bike to the contest is from Honda and their CBR600RR. This 2025 CBR500R was redesigned last year with some big updates. The CBR500R has modern-day styling, advanced high-quality components, and even winglets. And our next bike is the Yamaha R3. Finally, the R3 gets a new look from Yamaha. All new fairings are now updated on the R3 to allow it to conform to the modern Yamaha sport bike line. Along with some other changes, however, one thing remains the same, and that is the tried and true 321cc parallel twin engine. Also, due to the complete lack of competitiveness, I decided to pull the Suzuki GSX-250R from the competition. I completely ripped that bike enough in my 2023 video, and I just don't see a purpose in comparing it here. It would just get dead last once again, so I decided to opt it out of this video. I'm going to compare these bikes in 5 different categories, which are as follows: performance, practicality, aesthetics, features, and value. Because we have 5 bikes we are comparing, we will be rating them 1 through 5. For example, the bike with the best performance will score 5 points. The bike with the second best performance will score 4 points, and so on. At the end, I will tally up all the points, and whichever bike gets the most points will win. Anyway, let's start with the first category, performance. For performance, I'll be looking at horsepower, torque, curb weight, engine size, and type of each bike. Ultimately, the bike that wins this contest will be the one that achieves the greatest power to weight ratio. Also, one quick note about performance. 2 bikes in this segment are restricted to 47 horsepower, the CBR500R and the Aprilia RS457. This is to make them compliant for the A2 licensing purposes in Europe. However, in the US, we do not have such restrictions, which is why Kawasaki gets away with having 51 horsepower for their US models. As for the Honda and Aprilia, for some reason they didn't bother taking their restrictions off for their US models. Instead, they are all the same from Europe to US. If you buy the Ninja 500 in Europe, it won't have 51 horsepower, it will have close to 45 horsepower in order to keep the power to weight ratio A2 compliant. With that all said, in first place we have the Kawasaki Ninja 500. Powered by a 451cc parallel twin engine, the Ninja makes the most power here at 51 horsepower, along with a very modest curb weight of 375 pounds. The final power to weight ratio is an impressive 7.35 pounds per horsepower, a very strong number for a beginner bike. In second place is another all-new bike, the Aprilia RS457. The RS457 is another parallel twin engine, similar to the Ninja, but this bike has an extra 6 cc's, giving it a total of 457, giving it the second largest engine being compared. The RS457 makes a grand total of 47 horsepower and weighs 386 pounds, giving it a power to weight ratio of 8.21 pounds per horsepower. In third place, we have the KTM RC390, thanks to its 373cc single-cylinder engine making a grand total of 43 horsepower, all while being the lightest in the entire segment at 362 pounds. The final result is a strong power-to-weight ratio of 8.41 pounds per horsepower. Next in 4th place is the Yamaha R3 with their 321cc parallel twin engine. Although Yamaha is starting to lag behind a little bit on their engine, the R3 still makes a solid 42 horsepower, just one off of the KTM. And the R3 only weighs 373 pounds, which is the second lightest bike in the entire segment, giving the Yamaha a decent 8.88 power to weight ratio along with 4th place. And in 5th place, disappointingly, we see the Honda with their CBR600RR. I say disappointingly because this bike has the largest engine in the entire segment at 471ccs. Despite that large engine, we only see 47 horsepower out of this bike, and ironically, it also comes with the heaviest weight by a staggeringly significant 421 pounds. This 500 weighs more than a lot of the 600s do, and has much less power to support this hefty weight. The final power to weight ratio isn't far off from the Yamaha at 8.95 pounds per horsepower, but it is still disappointing that Honda's 500 is basically on the same power level as Yamaha's R3, despite having an extra 150 cc's. I know it's probably restricted for A2 licensing reasons, but couldn't Honda have found a way to at least drop some weight? Now let's move on to our next category, practicality. The way I look at practicality is basically how easy is the bike to live with on a day-to-day basis. Factors such as comfortability, reliability, fuel economy, and ergonomics. So one thing I love to look at is seat height. All the Japanese bikes are rather similar in seat height. The RS457 is a little taller at 31.5 inches, and the KTM is a bit of an outlier here at 32.4 inches. Everyone has a different inseam, but generally speaking, if you were shorter than say 5'10", then you would feel more comfortable on the RS457 or the Japanese bikes. The KTM is manageable if you are over 5'7", but unless you are 5'10" and above, it may be hard for you to flat-foot it completely, which may prove to be an additional challenge for a new rider. Now let's take a quick look at the side profile of all these bikes. Here I put a yellow line where the seat height is, the bar end height is, and where the foot peg is. Typically, the higher the bars are above the seat, the less of a bend in your back there will be, thus making the bike just a little bit more comfortable. Clearly, this shows that the RC390 is the most aggressive, followed by the RS457, and then pretty much a three-way tie with the other Japanese bikes. Also, one quick note, the KTM does have adjustable bars by about 10 millimeters, but even with that, I think it is still the most aggressive. So let's push comfort out of the way and now look at fuel economy. The new Ninja 500 achieves a 74 miles per gallon rating, allowing it to reach a range of 274 miles per tank, which is impressive considering it also has the best power to weight ratio of all the bikes here. The Honda also impresses a lot with a class-leading range of 324 miles thanks to its 4.5 gallon tank and 72 miles per gallon. The KTM and Yamaha are both disappointing with low 200 ranges. And 56 and 60 mile per gallon figures, these bikes are not the most powerful yet have the worst fuel economy. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. Also, according to the owner's manual, the KTM RC390 requires 91 octane fuel or higher, which will cost more, and that's why I highlighted it here. And finally, the Aprilia, which was a little bit of an odd one. I saw reports of it getting 48 miles per gallon, which is abysmal. It's also worth noting it has the smallest fuel tank, so again, really, who knows? Aprilias are generally not known for their fuel economy. I am happy to report that all models come with a fuel gauge and a gear indicator, which is the first time I have ever said that in one of these videos. Finally, guys, we did it, and it only took until 2025 for that to happen. As for reliability, it's safe to say all the Japanese bikes are rather reliable. I've looked for reports on reliability concerns, and so far all of these bikes have been rock solid, as you'd expect from these rather under-stressed parallel twin engines. Now, as for the other two, the KTM and Aprilia, it could be a different story. I will say that the KTM, it's better this second generation versus the first. The first gen had all types of head gasket issues among the other top-end problems. The second gen seems to be a bit better, but again, it's still rather new and not tested as much as the other bikes, so time will tell. The Aprilia is brand new for 2024, so it has even less examples out there than the KTM. Now, I've been Googling and trying to find people with issues with their RS457, but there just hasn't been a ton of reports out there yet. Not saying some people haven't had their problems, but it just doesn't seem like at this point in time they've earned a reputation for being unreliable, but they are rather unproven. Anyway, with all that said, let's go right to the results. In last place, earning just 1 point, is the KTM RC390. KTM really tried to appeal to the track riders with this bike, and as a result, we are given an uncomfortable bike with poor fuel economy that requires premium octane and has a taller seat and lower clip-ons, and I just cannot shake the reliability concerns. And in fourth place, the next bike is the RS457 from Aprilia. Again, unproven reliability is a tough sell for any new rider. Add that plus the more aggressive ergos, and you have a bike that may be great for taking to group rides or twisty roads, but is this really the best option for a new rider? I'd say no in terms of practicality. Now in third place is the Honda, and my reasoning is simple. It's weight. It is just a heavy bike. 420 pounds for a new rider to manage will be tough. Curb weight may have some advantages, but mostly it's disadvantage, especially in slow speeds and parking situations, which is where a lot of new riders will have struggles. Entering into second place is the Yamaha. Although it does get poor fuel economy compared to the other bikes, still gets well over 50 miles a gallon, which is plenty practical for just about anybody. I'd prefer my bike gets 56 miles per gallon and weighs less than 400 pounds, which is why it's better than the CBR. It's an easy to pick up bike with a low seat height, easy to ride ergonomics, and overall just ready for the street. However, as great as the R3 is, it pales in comparison to number 1 on our list, the Ninja 500. I must admit I am getting a little bit tired of the Ninja 500, it just wins too much, but how can I ignore that it does everything the Yamaha does, which got second place, but even better than the Yamaha. Overall, you just can't ignore the pros with the Ninja 500. It's really light, it has a good seat height, good ergonomics, it gets great fuel economy, it really has no Achilles heel in practicality. It's the best bike here, and deservingly so gets first place in this category. Next up, aesthetics. The way I like to calculate aesthetics is by conducting a poll on my channel. I love doing it this way because it totally takes all blame off of my hands and puts it on you guys, which is great for me. I simply ask the question, which bike do you guys think looks the best? And usually it's a pretty straightforward process, and whichever bike gets the most votes wins and so on. However, for some reason, YouTube now limits the number of poll options to 4, which is annoying because we have 5 bikes here. The way I decided to get around this was by first polling the Aprilia RS457, the Honda CBR600RR, the KTM RC390, and the Ninja 500. I waited a day for the results, and then I took the 2 highest scoring results and conducted a second poll using the 2 most popular options along with 2 different options. And I actually had the GSX 250R in there before I decided to remove it from the contest. Anyway, let's get right to the results. In last place is the KTM RC390, earning just 6% of the vote. The single headlight design just seems to hurt the KTM. People really do prefer the dual headlights, and I completely understand why. However, I personally have to say I love the looks of the KTM. From the side, you can see the trellis frame. Along with my favorite lines of all the bikes here, you get that sharp inward cut to the front fairing, and when you get this bike in that black and orange colorway, it just looks so clean. Next, in fourth place, we have the Ninja 500. Although a very good looking bike in its own regard, especially from the front, but on the sides, the Ninja has softer lines than the competition, and I believe that's what led it to getting third place. However, it is still a very good looking bike, and I really like the design of the Ninja 500. Anyway, next in third place is the all-new redesigned Yamaha R3. The community gave this a whopping 17% of the votes. Now, although this R3 is more of a facelift than a full redesign, the fairings are mostly similar to the last generation. The belly fairing, the fuel tank, all look exactly the same as before. As for the side fairing, you can see they opened it up a little bit more, but it's very similar. And of course, the front end is completely changed. The headlights squished in and changed into running LEDs. The actual headlight is moved to the center to mimic their R7 and R9 more. Overall, it's a nice looking bike with some welcome changes and is well deserved to get the third place. Next up, Second place, the Honda CBR600RR. The Honda gets second place because it's a premium bike, simple as that. It has good lines on the side along with those little fairing vents, which looks pretty cool. The paint scheme with the metallic red and blue helps give the Honda a high-end look. And of course you got the winglets. Yep, a beginner bike with actual winglets, but that doesn't matter too much. They're integrated well into the fairings and are not offensive at all. And in first place, to absolutely no one's surprise, is the Aprilia RS457. Polled twice, earning 52% in both polls with over 3,000 people voting. The RS457 is the clear winner, so let's look at the bike and find out why. Starting with the front end, of course, LED everything, and with the styling resembling its bigger brother, the RS V4 with the triple headlights, along with these upstream LED accents lights, is complete perfection. A great, beautiful front end on a bike. Oddly enough, from the side, you almost get a muscular looking physique. Rather than swooping down or sloping down with cuts in the front fairings, it almost looks like they slope up. We even get these three little shark fin vents cutting up to the top, which is a cool look and helps break up the design a little bit more and gives your eye something to focus on. Also, I do like how you get a great view of that aluminum frame sweeping up the side of the bike. A very cool look, and the only bike here with an aluminum frame, by the way. The Aprilia is a well-deserved first place. Okay, now it's time to move on to our next category, and that's features. Features used to be a non-existent factor on beginner bikes. In fact, when I first started riding, the biggest feature a beginner bike would have is a fuel gauge. Luckily today, I'm happy to report every bike here has a fuel gauge, and not only that, but they all have gear indicators too. What a time to be alive. Also, all bikes we are comparing offer ABS as standard, except for the Ninja 500 does require you to pay extra for it, but we will get back to that in the value section a little bit later in this video. So with all that out of the way, in last place we have the Kawasaki Ninja 500. There are two variations of the Ninja. There is the standard Ninja 500, and then there's the Ninja 500 SE, which stands for Special Edition. To put it simply, if you get the SE edition and consequently pay a lot more money, you also get the TFT display, which is great. It comes with phone connectivity, a USB-C outlet, a larger windshield, and even a proximity key, so you don't even have to take your key out of your pocket to turn on your motorcycle. All of these are really cool features. However, the standard edition of the Ninja 500 comes with none of that. The standard edition has an LCD instrument panel, which overall doesn't look bad, but it's not a TFT display. Because we are comparing beginner bikes, I'm going to be basing this Ninja 500 off of the standard edition, and because of that, it gets 5th place. And next up in 4th place is the R3. The R3 is sporting an LCD gauge cluster, which is disappointing. However, it is updated and it looks nicer than the Ninjas. It also has a USB outlet right next to the cluster, which is very convenient for charging your phone or even plugging in heated gear. The LCD panel clearly illustrates your fuel gauge and gear indicator along with an optional quick shifter for just $160, which is a total bargain and not offered on all these bikes. The Yamaha comfortably gets 4th place. In 3rd place is the Honda CBR600RR. The bike, as mentioned before, has a beautiful TFT display, and it is the only bike here that seems to have an in-dash GPS thanks to Honda's Road Sync system. Also, it appears that you can customize the way your gauge cluster screen looks, which is really cool. I don't believe any of the other bikes can do that. However, there is no quick shifter option or adjustable ABS, which is why I decided to give it 3rd place. And in 2nd place is the Aprilia RS457. This one was tough because I really like what Aprilia has to offer. It has a beautiful, absolutely perfect TFT display. In fact, this one is my favorite of all of them. It also has adjustable traction control, and you can turn off ABS for the rear, which is really nice. In addition to that, Aprilia also has backlit controls for all their handlebar controls. I think it looks extremely classy and looks really cool, especially at night, and could be very helpful. You have adjustable rider modes and a quick shifter as standard. The Aprilia comes with a lot of nice features. But I have to give the nod to the KTM RC390. because it has everything the Aprilia has, except in addition to all of that, it also has cornering ABS, which is a very nice feature, especially for newer riders. It also has an ambient light sensor to automatically switch between day and night mode on their TFT display, which is pretty cool. However, my one and only gripe with the KTM is that the TFT display is ugly. They give you a nice big 5-inch TFT display, and then they allow you to only use about half of it for your gauges. The rest of it is being consumed by what appears to be a permanent fixture of different options on the left, which is a horrible use of real estate. Although it is customizable to show different things such as lap times or temperature readouts, I would prefer KTM gave an option to hide all that and allow it to use more of the space by the tachometer or speedometer. All these words in front of your face can be distracting and it doesn't look good. This was almost enough for me to drop KTM down to second, maybe even third place, but dang, that cornering ABS is just too good. KTM gets first place in terms of features. And that leads us to our final category, value. So in last place we have the Honda CBR600RR. At $7,400, the Honda is the most expensive bike here, yet it has the worst power to weight ratio. It does have a good fit and finish and uses premium features like Showa suspension and a full color TFT display, but it's just too expensive for what it gives you. The Showa suspension is nice, but not needed for a beginner bike. In fourth place is the Aprilia RS457. This just comes down to price. $6,900. It's cheaper than the Honda, and it does have better features. It also has the second best power to weight ratio in the segment. The features are amazing on this bike, but it's a big price tag, and I'm not sure a beginner will want to start on a bike that has such a hefty entry cost. Which moves us to third place, and that is the Yamaha R3. At just $5,500. It is actually the cheapest bike here. The power to weight ratio is not exactly high, but it's not that far off from the others. At the end of the day, this bike will feel pretty similar to most of the other bikes in the segment in terms of power. I also really like the features this bike comes with. It may not have a TFT display, but the LCD panel is actually really good looking. And in second place is the Kawasaki Ninja 500. The standard ABS version of the Ninja 500 costs $5,700, and it does all that while still providing the most amount of horsepower, and it's not even the largest engine here either. Impressive Kawasaki, very impressive. And that leaves first place, the KTM RC390. At just $5,900, the KTM is below the mean cost, yet provides the absolute best features. It also is the cheapest bike here to feature a full color TFT display, and it even has exclusive features such as cornering ABS and adjustable clip-ons. In addition to that, it has the third best power to weight ratio. The KTM RC390 is a great value and well-deserved first place. And with all of that out of the way, it is finally time for us to tally up the results and see which bike wins Best Beginner Bike for 2025. So let's start out by revealing last place. Scoring just 12 points is the Honda CBR600RR. The Honda is a middle-of-the-pack type of bike, makes average power and has a decent amount of features with a nice looking TFT display and even in-gauge navigation, which is really cool. It was also ranked second for best looking bike by the community, and generally speaking, it is fairly practical. However, the issue here is the weight. 421 pounds is a substantial amount of weight. That and it being the most expensive bike here, it's just hard to justify for a new rider to get. Next up, in fourth place, scoring 13 points, is the Yamaha R3. Yamaha did a decent job with the redesign, rated the third best looking by the community, but it's not just good looking. The R3 is practical, has an affordable entry price, and is a solid platform. I actually believe in a way the R3 is one of the ultimate beginner bikes here. Now, how does the ultimate beginner bike get only fourth place? For starters, its engine is just starting to let it down a little bit. It's a fine engine, but it's starting to lag behind in horsepower numbers. Yamaha did give us a new update, but it's mostly just new clothes on an old bike. I think Yamaha really likes selling their R3 at the $5,500 price tag and are satisfied where their engine is at. I guess 42 horsepower isn't all that bad compared to the other bikes, and we gotta remember this is a beginner bike at the end of the day. Less power might actually be seen as a good thing. Next up, in third place, scoring an impressive 15 points, is the KTM RC390. Max value, best features at a great price. It's a fantastic bike. It has a solid, powerful little engine and is completely ready for the track. The RC390 is perfect for the person who wants to get into track days or weekend riding down in the twisties. The bike is packed up with some insanely good features such as the TFT display and quartering ABS. Again, insane value. However, the thing that makes the KTM great is also the thing that holds it back the most. Being such a great track bike hurts its ability to be practical on the street. That plus you always have to worry about reliability, and the community in general doesn't really like the looks of the bike. Moving on to second place, we have the new Aprilia RS457, earning a very respectable 17 points. The Aprilia enters a new segment and instantly impresses. You guys loved the looks of the RS457 by rating it the best looking by a convincing margin. It also fares well, coming in second place in both features and performance. It's a bit pricey for what it is, which is why the value is low, and the practicality could be better. And as mentioned before, the Aprilia is A2 compliant, but if you are so inclined to flash this ECU and modify the bike in the future, you could possibly get more power out of it, likely more than the Ninja 500. And speaking of the Ninja 500, coming in first place once again, the returning champion is the Kawasaki with their Ninja 500. It has the best power to weight ratio by a fairly significant margin. It also is a very practical bike thanks to its lightweight, low seat height, and great reliability. Sure, the aesthetics are a little bit bland, but I actually really like the way it looks, and the value is strong. The Ninja 500 is the best beginner bike here. It's cheap, it's strong, it's reliable. It's exactly what a beginner bike should be, and I highly recommend it to all new riders out there looking to start their motorcycling journey in 2025. Anyway, everybody, that is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you found it helpful. Please let me know down in the comment section below what your thoughts and opinions of these bikes are. Do you feel I got something wrong or missed something important? Please contribute down below and we can start a discussion. One of my hopes for 2025 is that we get lots of new riders onto the scene. So if you're a new rider or a potential new rider and have questions about getting your first bike, please feel free to ask and I'll do my best to answer everyone. Anyway, thank you again for watching and I'll see you all in the next one.
It's a sick news for your little aerosol. Let me live my life, the one I'd better lead. All the blondes of fantasies, and we looked at them 11 ways. You said, look